Let's dive into the aftermath of the 2023 Super Wildcard Weekend here on Roughing the Passer. I recently found out the Denver Broncos hired Packers OC Nathaniel Hackett to be their next head coach. But come on, kick the field goal, take the point. Win the game.
No, you have to.
See you all. Welcome to Roughing the Passer, show where I talk football, miscellaneous stuff, and mostly football. I'm your host, Sam Ruffing, and that is correct. We are talking about Super Wildcard Weekend, and boy, what a wild Super Weekend card it was. I mean, it started out a little boring with the 49ers and Seahawks, but then it heated up with the Jaguars' 27-point rally over the Los Angeles Chargers. It kept that momentum and tension with the Miami Dolphins at Buffalo Bills, and didn't slow down for the Minnesota Vikings and New York Giants. And it lost a little steam around the Bengals and Ravens. But man, they pulled it together and put that cherry on top with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers losing 31-14 on Monday night. Man, was it beautiful. That was a great 3-day weekend. A weekend in which I went 5-1 with my picks. If only the Minnesota had won, then I would have been 6-0. But what are you gonna do? Anyways, let's start with that Tampa Bay. We can just see my fog. Wow, that's cool. Let's start with the Tampa Bay and Dallas Cowboys game. Well, there's not much to say. I mean, after a rough start, the Cowboys pounced on the Buccaneers for 4 unanswered touchdowns and 4 unanswered missed extra points before the Tampa Bay Buccaneers finally got into the end zone themselves, but it was too late at that point, and they went for 2 and missed it. And Dallas decided to score again after that, and Tampa decided to score once more. But the 8-9 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, led by Tom Brady in what could have been his final game of his career, were just completely destroyed by a Dallas Cowboys team who had never beaten Tom Brady before and were 4 games better than they were. And honestly, looked mighty good and honestly pretty scared. But more on that later, as let's touch on, is this Tom Brady's final game as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer? What is the aftermath for him? Personally, I do indeed think it is his final game as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Just over the last 3 years, it started out great with that Super Bowl win, but there were rumblings behind the scenes between him and Bruce Arians, and I don't know. The way Brady is as a guy, he's very fit and disciplined, and he wants everything done right, like a guy from Boston would be, because that's where he played for 20 years. And when he came to Tampa, he obviously instilled his system a little bit there, but eventually that unraveled, and the Tampa lifestyle of loosey-goosey fun and, well, let's just say not as disciplined as New England caught up to them, and I think it's been grinding. It's been bugging Brady ever since that Super Bowl win, how loosey-goosey they are, honestly. How unbuttoned up they are compared to New England. And so personally, with the fact that Brady just, I don't know, Tampa doesn't really fit him as a place, I think he moves on and goes to the Las Vegas Raiders personally. I mean, Josh McDaniels is his friend. He was his offense coordinator in New England, so he knows that offense inside and out, and they got weapons there in Darren Waller and Devontae Adams. Josh Jacobs, obviously. No defense, but I don't know. I think that would be honestly a really good fit for Tom Brady. It would help players buy into the locker room there. People are saying the Dolphins, but like Tua was really good for them this year, so I don't know why they'd want to move on personally. So no, I do not think Tom Brady is retiring. Moving on from Tampa, yes, but I do not think he's retiring. Now, why Tampa Bay completely bombed this year? And it's pretty simple. You just have to go back to last year in March when Tom Brady decided to come out of retirement after spending all of 40 days in retirement to play his 23rd season in the NFL at 45 years of age. When he came back, Bruce Arians was the head coach, but he had had some spats with Bruce Arians before, and so Bruce Arians decided to resign and move upstairs. More like Tom Brady's like, if I'm coming back, I want Bruce Arians out so he could run the system, basically. And so Bruce Arians was kicked up the upstairs, and that was the start of their downfall as they brought in former head coach of the New York Jets and current defensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Todd Bowles, who, yes, while having head coaching experience, was not very good. He had one winning season in New York and then didn't do anything after that. And honestly, it showed this year as the team that was second in total offense last year dropped to, hold on, I have it here. They dropped from second in total offense in yards, according to Pro Football Reference, to the 25th best offense. They fell 23 spots in 1 year in offense. Their rushing game fell from 25th to 32nd, and you could see throughout that game that the Tampa just never runs the ball and doesn't even really try. Leonard Fournette only had 6 carries and 1 target. That is just pathetic, honestly. And if it was Bruce Arians, well, he may have not had more rushing yards, but he would have had more. The team as a whole would have had a lot more yards, as in 2022, Tom Brady threw for 5,316 passing yards. 2023, he threw for 4,694. He also threw for 43 touchdowns, leading the league in 2021. And in 2022, this year, I guess this season, Tom Brady threw for only 25. Last year, Tom Brady had 12 interceptions, which is actually more than his 9 interceptions this year, but he also didn't have nearly as many pass attempts as he did last year. He had like 700 pass attempts last year. It was crazy. This year he didn't have that. However, the defense did improve from 13th overall to 5th overall. But the team as a whole could not score. They only averaged 18 points a game. And when they went against a team that had a ferocious defense in Dan Quinn's Dallas Cowboys and a great offense led by Mike McCarthy, Tony Pollard, Dak Prescott, all that, they were utterly destroyed because they didn't have that coach in Bruce Arians who had led them to a Super Bowl previously and won it, and has just been a great coach for the past 10 seasons. They moved on from that guy for Todd Bowles, and it shows. They made a huge mistake firing Bruce Arians, and it cost them dearly. Now on to the Dallas Cowboys, and every year you hear the classic joke that Cowboys fans say all the time, we're going to the Super Bowl. And obviously we all laugh and point at them like, really? You're the Cowboys. You haven't done anything since the 1990s. But this year, something feels different about them. And it showed that game against Tampa Bay. I mean, Dallas, when you think of them, are always an average team, above average team, but not quite great. They're never great. And if they are, they always disappoint. But this time, they went 12-5 in the regular season for their best record since last year when they went 14-3. No, 3-14. 3-4. 3-4. Well, they went 3-4. And they had to go on the road because they lost the division to Philadelphia to Tampa Bay, where Tom Brady, everyone thought the scriptwriter was going to have him win the game and go on a long run to the Super Bowl and retire happy. Woohoo. But Dallas, who has never beaten Tom Brady in their career, went into Tampa and steamrolled. And Dak Prescott, who has been good, above average, but not great, just like the Cowboys themselves, threw for 4 touchdowns and ran for another, equaling 5 on the day. The most he's had in a single playoff game. And boy, that team looked different. I mean, coming into the year, no one thought they would do anything. I mean, there were like no expectations. They thought it'd be an 8-9 team. I mean, they just traded Amari Cooper for a 5th-round pick. And so, to see that team here seems improbable. But if you look closer, this team is actually pretty darn good. You'd be surprised. I mean, they're number 1 in the league in takeaways with 32. Their offense, they're 10th overall, 8th in passing. No, 8th in rushing, 13th in passing. And their defense, that's spicy. I mean, Dan Quinn this year has turned up the heat with second-year Micah Parsons, who is an absolute stud at linebacker and pass rusher. I mean, Trayvon Diggs gets all the picks in the world, and the fact that the Cowboys can get so much pressure is a scary thought for the San Francisco 49ers. And honestly, I could see an upset here because of the fact that the Cowboys get so much pressure. And last week, early Brock Purdy did not look so steady. He was a little jumpy. He was missing wide open guys, nearly had a pick 6, basically. I mean, he threw it directly to a Seahawks linebacker that should have been caught. And with the Cowboys, that's going to be caught. If you're not careful, that's going to be caught. And so I think they can apply the pressure early with with that defense. The run game is obviously great with Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. And Dak Prescott honestly looks different this year. Yes, he led the league in the NFL. Led the NFL with interceptions with 14, but something about him, I don't know, he seems different. Like, less... The fact that he's more erratic in a way is better for the playoffs because that means he has to play lights out, and I feel like as of late he's been playing more lights out. And I think that'll benefit the Cowboys hugely against the San Francisco 49ers and could lead to an upset. This team just feels different. Mike McCarthy has done an amazing job. And I would not be surprised if they beat the San Francisco 49ers. I don't think they will, but it wouldn't surprise me. Moving on to the second biggest game of the weekend, the one that was just fantastic to watch if you were a Jaguars fan and everyone else in the NFL, and one that was absolutely horrific for Chargers fans. That's right, Saturday night, Chargers versus Jacksonville Jaguars. In a game that started off with Trevor Lawrence throwing 4 interceptions in the first half, and the Chargers taking a 27-0 lead. And let me tell you, after watching that game, it has become clear to me, Trevor Lawrence has arrived. Yeah, that's right. Trevor Lawrence is here, baby. It took 2 seasons and 1 with Urban Meyer, but oh boy. Let's just delve into the game. So, as mentioned, Trevor Lawrence's first pass as an NFL quarterback in the playoffs was picked off by the Los Angeles Chargers off of the tip. And then on the next drive, he decided to throw another interception, which the Chargers used to kick a field goal to go up 10-0. And then a few drives later, he threw another interception, his second to Asante Samuel Jr., who is the son of Asante Samuel. 3 1/4. And if you think that's bad, it's going to get worse from there. as in the second quarter, after the Bolts went up 17 to nothing, Trevor Lawrence threw his 4th interception of the game, once again to Asante Samuel Jr. And at that point, Trevor Lawrence had been 5 of 18 for 38 yards or so, and had thrown 4 interceptions. Asante Samuel Jr. had his 3rd interception. And the Chargers used that to kick a field goal or score a touchdown, I can't remember, but they went up 27-0 near the end of halftime. And this is where things started to turn around, as from then on, Trevor Lawrence, a man faced with all the pressure in the world, of playing in his first playoff game, of being the first overall pick, of being the guy who everyone proclaimed as one of the greatest talents at quarterback we have ever seen, who has not lost a single game on Saturday going back to high school, went on to throw a touchdown near the end of the first half to make the score 7-27. I mean, even with that touchdown, it's barely a dent in the Chargers' lead. There's no reason why that man should have any right to come back in that game and lead the Jaguars to a victory. I mean, how do you throw 4 interceptions and keep the nerve to keep at it and not just unravel completely? I mean, there are a few quarterbacks who go into those scenarios and come out on top. I mean, if you're going to separate yourself from the pack and become a top quarterback in the NFL, you have to come back. If you don't, you're still a great quarterback, and no one blames you for not coming back. But if you actually go out there and complete that comeback, you will just become unbelievably legendary. And that is what Trevor Lawrence did, as from the 5-18 start for 4 interceptions and only 5 completions for 30-something yards. He completed 23 of 29 passes for 23 of 29 passes for 250 yards. And not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 darn touchdowns. The nerve of this man, including after one of the touchdowns, the final one. He took a QB sneak from the 1-yard line and just Michael Jordaned it over the edge with his giant 6'6" frame. It was beautiful. And then late in the game, they got the ball back, down 2. They need a field goal to win, and he leads a drive, and it stalls out around the 40-yard line. It's 4th and inches, and Doug Peterson, I gotta give the man credit, calls what looks like a QB sneak because he has a 6'6" quarterback, and it's 4th and inches. 3 running backs lined up behind the line of scrimmage. And instead of just taking it forward, he has Trevor Lawrence hand the ball off to Travis Etienne, who runs around the right side of the line, gains about 30 yards, and sets the Jaguars up in perfect field goal range to kick the game winner, which Al Michaels called in the most boring fashion he possibly could. The most done fashion after trying to promote the Rings of Power on Amazon and completely failing, and I cannot blame him for that. Oh, I mean, he had to promote Thursday Night Football. I don't know, they're both extremely boring, I imagine. And so, in the final seconds, when the clock hit 0, the Jaguars did not have the lead at all. But then the kick went in, and the Jaguars took the lead. The game ended, and they won 31-30. It was a beautiful game. Unbelievable, and just the nerve on Trevor Lawrence to have all that thrown at him and just to be like, whatever, man, I'm going to go out there, look like the most Florida quarterback ever since Gardner Minshew anyways, and lead touchdown drive after touchdown drive after touchdown drive after touchdown drive. It was insane. And Trevor Lawrence, man, that is a thing that starts your career off. That puts you in a whole nother class. That elevates you above Herbert, above Lamar, into like the 4th best quarterback in the AFC slot, man. Unbelievable. Go out there and keep your Saturday streak alive and beat KC. Please. Now let's move on to the Chargers. The men who blew that 27-point lead. The team that spurred its fan base by ditching San Diego for the greener pastures of LA, more like the smog-ridden city of LA, for a stadium they don't even own. Unbelievable. And everyone is going to blame Brandon Staley for this loss, and probably rightfully so. As the week prior, he had gotten Mike Williams injured in a meaningless game against the Denver Broncos. And in this game, after leading 27-0, in the second half, decided to not run the ball a single time. I mean, only 7 times. He decided to run the ball only 7 times, and you have Austin Eckler. And man, that comeback was weird because the Chargers weren't even helped by the refs. I mean, the Jaguars weren't even really helped by the refs in any way, shape, or form, except maybe the Joey Bosa call, but that one's ticky-tacky. I mean, Jaguars didn't force any turnovers on the Chargers. And so the Chargers just straight up blew it. They didn't drain clock. They missed a field goal late. And just lost the game. And while, yes, it is fair to blame Brandon Staley because the coach should be managing this better, I am not going to exempt Justin Herbert on this loss. I know it sounds ridiculous, but you know what? You know what everyone does? They like to call out Tua Tagovailoa and say everything in Miami is his fault. And nothing in LA is Justin Herbert's fault. Well, this time, it's on Herbert because in that second half, you know how many touchdowns Justin Herbert threw to help his team? 0. You know how many field goal drives he led his team on? 2. One of them was missed. You know what Justin Herbert did in the second half? Not much. You know, a guy who is supposedly up there with Mahomes and Allen and Burrow. A guy who has all the talent in the world cannot go out there and just win that game easily. This man is not exempt, and as I've been stating for I don't know how many episodes now, but comebacks are not only on the coach, as we've learned from Matt Ryan, who blew the 28-3 lead, and now the 33-0 lead. And you know what? I've seen Justin Herbert do this before. Well, I don't remember what week it was. I think it was week 8, 2020. The Los Angeles Chargers head into Mile High Stadium, and they went up 24-3 against the Denver Broncos at one point in the second half. And inexplicably, the Chargers, without Brandon Staley, mind you, this was Anthony Lynn as head coach, proceeded to blow a 21-point lead to Drew Lock in the Pat Shurmur Denver Broncos and Vic Fangio. I don't understand it. But they blew it, and the final score was 31-30. Oh, that makes sense now. But Justin Herbert did not do a single thing in that game against the Denver Broncos in the second half. He threw I think he threw one touchdown. But then after that, threw an interception in the end zone to Bryce Callahan, which basically killed all the Chargers' momentum and spurred Denver on to a victory. He basically hurt his team there. And in this game, he hurt his team by not playing up to standards, by not holding on as well. He's had a history of blowing these games, and if he wants to be up there with the Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, he's got to win these games. I mean, Herbert's a man who barely has a winning record in the NFL. I understand he's got all the talent in the world. He's got one of the strongest arms, but he keeps blowing these big games to Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow. And yeah, he beat Tua, so what? It injured Tua Tagovailoa when the Chargers had a home game. Ooh, big victory. I don't want to hear people exempting Justin Herbert from this loss. He is partially to blame. He deserves blame, just like Brandon Staley. That's my take. This has been Roughing the Passer. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and share it with your friends and family. Subscribe for more content, and if you want to stay up to date, hit that bell so you know when I upload every single video, every time. I thank you all for watching, and I will see you later. Good night.